all these things that I do it because of this sort of identity that I've crafted for myself. And then it makes it easy. So if you work from the place of, what type of person do I have to be to have and do the things that I want, then it makes it fairly straightforward to work from there.
This podcast encourages and empowers you to create your own unique real story, develop your own unique real statement, and discover your own unique real self. The power is yours. Good morning, Derek Loudermilk. Previously, episode 620 of the 12-Minute Convos podcast. It's been just 2 years, 10 months, 5 days, 21 hours, and 30 minutes since we last had a conversation.
If you set your goal and you're focusing on it enough, if you're thinking about it, things will just fall into place. It's almost like you don't even have to work.
That was then. This is now. Derek, how are you doing, my friend?
Wow, I love the precision. I'm doing really well. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a great pleasure. I think the biggest thing I would like to know, because we spoke about it when we did speak, was that 1 week from that date you were expecting. How's that been?
Yeah, before we hopped on this call, just got my 2 kids and my wife out the door. Yeah.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
She was your girlfriend at that time, right? And you said, after the first child, we'll decide, how we move forward. And you laughed exactly just like that as well when you said it. But that's great. Congratulations.
Yeah, it was an unexpected event and exactly what I needed. The Rolling Stone song, You Can't Always Get What You Want, which for me at that time was to just be single. But now I have an amazing family, a wife and 2 kids. They're 2 years apart, 2 years and 4 days, and they're essentially twins. They look just alike, and they're best friends already, and it's super cool. And we've taken these kids to my son has been to 15 countries.
Wow.
And my daughter, she's only 9 months, and she's been to 8 countries so far as we travel around.
Well, that's amazing. Well, yeah, let's dig into that then. Again, congratulations. Well done. And this podcast is just, I thought I got all the joy I could get with the previous conversations. I didn't even think, hey, there will be repeat conversations and the value that can come from that. So let's dig into the location-independent entrepreneur, where you're traveling but still able to work. How's that going?
It's good. Actually, we decided to settle down for a few years. So we were living in Portugal. We're from the States. We were living in Portugal earlier this year, and we were living in this tiny village, and we thought we wanted a very quiet sort of countryside feel. We were living close to the beach where actually they hold the World Surfing Championships. So really lovely landscape, but we weren't living in Lisbon, which is where everybody goes when they go to Portugal. And the experience we had, we didn't meet a lot of locals because they're largely just farmers and a generation older than us. And so it was that distinct lack of community that we really noticed. And we have an amazing community here in St. Louis where I live. And so we said, let's slow down. Of course, I've already done a couple trips and I'm planning a couple more trips. So I'm still traveling, but we're not moving from country to country as much. And it feels really good to sort of slow down.
Yeah. You set an anchor. You have an anchor spot now that you come back to, yeah?
Well, it's so crazy. I never expected, this is where I grew up. I never expected to come back to the place where I went to school, but both of my kids were born in the same city as I was.
Wow. That is great, yeah. I love to see dots connect, and that is great. That is great. So you're doing what specifically as an entrepreneur now? Because they are the podcast, right? Well, when we spoke, there were 2 podcasts that you were doing.
Yes.
What are you doing for business right now?
Yeah, so the Art of Adventure podcast is in its 5th year, still going strong. Episode 284, not quite so many as you, but yeah, that has continued, and the podcast fuels other things that I do. So I've published 4 books since then, and I'm working on 2 more. 3 of them were bestsellers, and one of them is pretty big. The one I'm working on now, it's a leadership book about how experiences like travel and festivals and going to the jungle to spend time with native tribes, how that influences the development of leaders. And so that's really cool because I've seen a lot of that on my travels and I get to do some cool research.
Now, can we go to DerekLoudermilk.com and find out these things and follow you?
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Okay.
Still DerekLoudermilk.com. That's my name. And yeah, you can actually go and check out the sort of pre-order campaign. We basically ran a crowdfunding campaign to kick off the book, basically to prove the concept that people wanted to read this book. And then that's through Publishizer, some friends of mine that I met in Bali. And this crowdfunding platform, they basically also act as a literary agent. So they match you up once you've sort of proven that people want to read the book, they match you up with traditional publishers. And so my next book is being published through Wiley, which is,
Sweet.
several 100-year-old publisher.
Sweet. It speaks again for those listening to how many people want to get this book, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So I think we had 517 something people purchase books sort of pre-order before the book was even written. And
Wow.
so we had a sense that there's a lot of good leadership books out there, but this is more an unconventional, because you can't really think outside the box. You just have to have other boxes to think in. You have to have this broad array of unconventional experiences, especially when leaders get into totally unknown situations, which is happening a lot these days and around the world. You sort of have to be able to think laterally, and that's about the identity of the leader if they can do that themselves. So it's important to look at how these leaders develop that ability within themselves.
Yeah, creating a brand of your own unique, real strengths. You've done that, though. I mean, if we peel back to the time when you became like the world record holder in volcano climbing, like you've been around the mountain, pun intended.
Yeah, I have this whole, some people call it a bucket list of things that I'm curious about or want to try. And some of them are pretty easy. Like one that I'm just really pleased with is I worked with a graffiti artist to paint a bicycle. That I've always had this image in my mind, but going through the process of finding a local graffiti artist and working with him to design what the artwork's going to look like. And, now I have this beautiful bicycle, and people comment everywhere I write it. They're like, that's amazing. It looks so cool. It looks great in photographs. And, what's the point? There's no economic objective. There's, other than like, we like to look at it because it's art. But going through that exercise of trying something totally new, I think it is good practice because it exposes me to different materials to do art with, and different, this guy, the community of graffiti artists is a community that I never would have known or explored otherwise. When I was in his shop, this graffiti artist from out of town came in and they were talking all their graffiti lingo. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. There's like a real professional graffiti artist like right here in front of me. I had this little fanboy moment, but it was totally unexpected and really cool.
You were reading an average of 10 books a month, and that was something else that you did where you would read a ton of books and share the information. How's that going? Are you still reading?
Still reading. I read a little bit less. I probably read 2 to 3 books a month. And now when I'm pushing the stroller, I listen to Audible recorded books. Yeah, I looked at other successful people. I was sort of modeling behavior, and I thought, okay, people like Elon Musk and Bill Gates, they just read a lot and they sort of create these mental constructs based on what they're reading. And so I basically decided I want that habit. I'm just going to assume that it's going to bring me success. So, I'm averaging 70 books a year now. But the process of reading it and then sort of making analogies to other things that I've read, and I do a lot of mind mapping to try to sort of get ideas out on paper. And then I translate that into little podcast episodes, into talks, workshops that I give, corporate workshops. So it's really important for me to translate what I'm learning back into teaching, because then I sort of keep what's really important and see when people are having problems, how can I bring in this knowledge from the book? And it helps me learn it better, but it also actually makes it useful rather than just piling up the knowledge for myself.
As well as the principle of keeping your cup half filled so that you can always give and then refill, which speaks again to the process and appreciating the process. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. I also love how you're speaking about leadership and how leaders need to be quick on their feet, and you're doing it as well, right? Like the children are there, and literally you have to be quick on your feet while pushing the stroller and listening to what would have been the time you would have used for reading. Things are evolving, and as they evolve, you are changing accordingly. So that's beautiful. I love that you're walking the talk, right? I wonder, your friends, you said that every year you guys would meet. Now that that type of evolving is coming on, where the family is growing, are you still doing that, meeting with that inner circle every year?
So I didn't get to meet with him the last year, but we did meet the year before. And yeah, everybody is having kids, but I sort of have evolved that into part of my business, actually. So Adventure Quest is something that I bring clients, essentially, people that want to go on these adventure trips together. So I've taken the idea and I've sort of offered it to the public, something they can go on an adventure with me. And at this point, I'm doing some travel for speaking in the next few months. And so I'm going to be personally visiting these friends along the way. So I do think it's important to have that sort of in-person, physical, one-on-one time. So if I can't make them all come to me, then I'll go to them. But the dream is that pretty soon I will just finance the whole thing for them and, buy them the tickets, and then they won't have any choice but to come.
Yeah, they and their family. Yeah, the family has to stay where, like, probably in the hotel room, right, close by, right, while you guys get to go off skiing, right? Something like that. Yeah, something like that.
Well, so if we wanted to do it right, we would get a big, 10-room mansion or whatever, and then hire a nanny and just have the kids hang out with the nanny or go into
Sweet.
daycare all day. And so we could all ski together
Yeah,
because that's what I
yeah.
really love.
Let me know about that,
You
right?
want to join?
Yeah, let me know.
Yeah.
Let me know about that. I've never skied, and I'm scared by the concept. Please note, I've never seen snow in my Caribbean island. Only when I visited America, I saw snow. So the fact of skiing down a mountain is not one of the thoughts that I'm warming up to, but I could watch on the sidelines,
Oh, you will love it. You will love it.
Well, Derek, my friend, I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to preserve your story. First, a couple of years ago, and even now, I think it's a grand opportunity, and more so to see that you've continued in the thing you've chosen to do. So I want to say thank you. I believe it's both motivating and inspiring. Thank you for all that you do. In closing, is there anything else you'd like to share with our amazing audience?
Well, thanks for having me. And I guess the thought that comes to mind is all these things that I do it because of this sort of identity that I've crafted for myself. And then it makes it easy. So if you work from the place of, what type of person do I have to be to have and do the things that I want, then it makes it fairly straightforward to work from there. So yeah, Angel, great to talk to you again. And thank you for having me.
You're welcome. A pleasure. I treasure. Derek Loudermilk, again, amazing audience. You can check him out at derekloudermilk.com. Thank you for being on what is inspired by 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones. This podcast is produced by Pod Edits. Visit podedits.com for professional podcast publishing.